Welcome to Aligned and Manifesting, the podcast that awakens your power to create a life that feels as good as it looks, grounded, joyful, and effortlessly magnetic. I'm your host, Kate Clark, manifestation mentor, mindset guide, and a believer that true alignment starts within. Here, we blend science and soul to help you reprogram your subconscious, regulate your energy, and manifest from a place of deep worthiness, not a willpower. Each week, we dive into conversations and tools that empower both your conscious and subconscious mind, so you can attract abundance, love, and peace with ease. I will even share how to teach these same principles to your kids, because when we raise conscious children, we raise a more aligned world. This is your sacred space to realign, rise, and remember who you truly are. A woman who is safe to receive, powerful enough to lead, and worthy of everything she desires. Now, take a deep breath, open your heart, and repeat after me. I am aligned. I am magnetic. I am the creator of my reality. Now, let's dive in. Hello, my love, and welcome back to Align and Manifesting. I have a special guest today, Ange, who is a successful mentor who helps ambitious, caring, and passionate individuals reach the next level of success with the help of spiritual tools. She's an author, podcaster, and spiritual lawyer. Hello, Ange. Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kate. It's an honor.
So, Ange, tell me, how did you get to this passion?
A long journey, actually. I wrote a whole memoir about it called Spiritual Lawyer because it was really small moves of the needle. There was one experience that helped me to shift the way I looked at the world, and it drove me from being your regular business lawyer to all the way to being a modern mystic. So you can imagine it took quite a while.
Amazing. So what was the moment, the breakthrough in your life which made you to pivot from a lawyer to a spiritual being?
That is a very interesting one. So I would say it was after I moved to the UK and I went to see a clairvoyant. I went to see a clairvoyant before moving to the UK, and she had been so helpful that a couple of years after moving back to the UK, I thought, I'd love to have another reading. And I was not prepared for what she told me at all. She brought my grandmother in, who had died a year before. And then at the end, she said, do you know that you have angel dust coming out of your hand? I just didn't comprehend what she was saying. And then I left, and I didn't know what to make of it. But she had a training in spiritual healing. So I went to one evening, and then one thing led to another. And then I trained in Reiki.
Sometimes you need that little push or big push in your life. But I feel that just when you hear stories and there's something very traumatic happening in your life, that is what makes the huge pivot and your life changes. You might not see it when it's happening. When you looking back, you'll be like, oh my God, I'm so grateful it happened, because I would never be where I am right now.
Absolutely. I have this theory that we have nudges to start with, but we probably don't listen to them. And then the nudges get bigger and bigger, and then the universe sends you bricks.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah. 100%. Universe will give you little nudges, and it's some kind of like, if you're not hearing me, I'm just going to throw it your way, and it will be a big one. So you will listen this time.
If there is a message or a nudge that feels quite subtle, it's best to act on it early rather than late, because it's not going to go away. And if we don't listen, it can become painful lessons for sure.
I think it's depends whenever people are listening to their intuition, because sometimes we can overcomplicate it. You know, you're getting these nudges, you're getting these thoughts, but then you can overthink it. Is it something I am just overthinking? Is this coming to me? Is it true?
I've been teaching intuition to entrepreneurs mostly for a good 15 years. And it's not that we don't have the intuition, it's that we don't trust it, we overthink it, and also we fail to act on it. And acting on it is the most important piece. because it's almost like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. It's about having the courage to act on your intuition, and that's a huge one.
It is. I agree with that, because when we fear that, what if I do this, what would happen, then you're not going to do that. But without risk, you're never ever going to see what's on the other side, do you?
Yeah. And intuition is trustworthy as long as you understand how it works. We each have a very different version of intuition. It comes to us in our unique way. People misunderstand intuition. For me, it's just a knowing. I know something without knowing how I know it. And that's the most common form of intuition for people who are not psychic. People expect that it's going to be the psychic senses, seeing, hearing, something really clear. Most of the time it's not. It's just knowing something, and you don't know why you know it, but it feels very, very strong in you. So it's about trusting ourselves and also being able to make the difference between intuition and fear, because sometimes they say the same thing, but they feel so different. If it's the fear, you will have a different sense in your body than if you could have exactly the same information. If it's intuition, you can feel very calm, even though you have the same information.
I
Yeah?
did recently a podcast on that, and there was a tool I shared with my listeners where I said, if you have this nudge and you have this feeling, and if you're not sure whenever it's your intuition or your fear, you just sit down and stop and listen how your body reacts, exactly what you described. Because when it's your fear, you feel your heart starts beating fast, or you start getting sweaty or nervous or trembling. But if it is your intuition, it's just going to be calm. So if people are not sure whenever it's intuition or fear, just sit on it 5-10 minutes. And then if you still have the same feelings, it's a fear.
I would add to what you've just shared is that even though if you're calm when you receive your intuition, your mind can kick in with the fear on top of it. So know that it could be a gap of just a few seconds when you feel calm, and then you start to panic because it lands in your mind. The intuition comes through the heart, and the mind is the one where the fear is created. So then it ends up being a bit of a battle between your heart and your mind. If you drop in your body enough, and maybe you go for a walk outdoors that calms your mind down, calms your nervous system, then you'll be more able to see what exactly is happening.
I agree with that. But we are such a busy lives these days that people just kind of go, go, go. And I feel that our decisions are driven that we need to do it in a split of a second, which sometimes it's not the right thing, especially big decisions. You really need to stop and think about it and take time to do it.
Yeah. And sometimes there's the sense of urgency is self-imposed.
That's tapping into boundaries, isn't it? Don't be pushed by other people. Have your boundaries, set the boundaries at right level.
Exactly. Then you get the clarity almost from the environment.
100%. I agree. And I feel that everything happens for a reason. So what I love, there's this sentence, is rejection means protection. And you don't know what would happen if you've gone into that situation. You really might want it, but it might not be the right path for you. And you might actually get so much better option than you ever dreamed of. It's just flipping the mindset.
I could not agree with you more. And also sometimes it's not a no, it's a not now. You're not ready. It's going to come, but in its own good time.
And I feel it's the time is when you look back, when things happen in your life, it might be circumstances when you in it, you'll be like, why is this happening to me? Why me? I'm a good person. But then when you look back at it, you can go, actually, do you know what? This circumstance might have seemed really bad in a moment, but it has made me pivoted in completely different life than I used to live. And it was a good thing, and I'm grateful for it. But it's all about reflecting, and it's really difficult sometimes when we're in it. But when we look back, you'll be like, do you know what? That's amazing that it happened. Even bad things happening, just looking at it. I'm grateful because it made me the person I'm today.
Yeah, absolutely. And situations can appear a certain way, but be actually what's happening in the background is completely different, which is why I love the work that I do, because I look into the bigger picture through the Akashic Records, and I can see something from such a different angle. So I had a client who someone put sugar in her petrol tank, which completely stopped her car, and she was so upset. And I had this feeling from the angels that this was actually a blessing in disguise. And it's the first time I had the courage to share that guidance, because it takes a lot of courage to share guidance like that when you have no proof before you have the proof. Literally the next day, she'd gone to the mechanics, and the mechanic had said, had you not come in, your brakes were thin and you were going to have an accident. It was almost guaranteed. So the angels actually inspired some petty criminals to put sugar in the tank of that person to save her life. I love that because, as well, I think it helps us deconstruct what happens by not trying to blame people for certain things. Now, obviously, I'm not encouraging people to lead criminal lives. This is not my point. But I think the universe works in mysterious ways, and it can use anything to help if you're open to that help.
The Akashic Records. So could you explain to me what it is and how it can help my listeners with their lives?
So the Akashic Records is sometimes called the Book of Life, and it's an energetic container that has all the information about a soul. So you have an Akashic Record, I have an Akashic Record, my cat has an Akashic Record as well, because he's a living being. My town has an Akashic Record because there's a collective energy where I live. Everything that has life in it has some sort of record that is kept of their evolution, their experience, etc. So it's mostly important for individuals because that means that this record or this book, it's an energetic book, will contain all your experiences throughout all your various lives. Now, obviously, you need to be open to the idea that you've lived more than once. And it will also show you the bigger picture, including your blueprint for this life, of what you've planned for yourself ahead of time, so that you understand a little bit more. And as we just discussed, some of the challenges we have in our lives, we very often have actually decided to go through these challenges ahead of time because we would experience something that would be beneficial to us, even if it doesn't look that way. Now, one thing I need to say is that as souls, before we incarnate, we are incredibly ambitious to what we can achieve on Earth. And sometimes we oversubscribe ourselves. We're like, I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do that, and I can do that. And then we're feeling a bit overwhelmed. And also, once we incarnate, we forget about that plan. So when it happens to us and we don't have access to that bigger picture, we can really feel really horrible. That's probably the first benefit of being able to have an Akashic Records reading, is that you are going to see the bigger picture, and it's going to help you probably with some of the challenges you're going through, because it will give you purpose for your life. You will see that you're part of a bigger picture that you might have even chosen yourself. And so it puts things in perspective, right? And it really gives us resilience to go through experiences that we might find difficult. How do you access them? Until probably 50 years ago, only people who were trained in some mystical traditions could access the records, because with great knowledge comes great responsibility. And looking into these records, not all the information would be for your highest good to obtain. So there needs to be some sort of wisdom from the reader that can give you the information that you need, but maybe resist giving you all the answers, because it's like if you play Monopoly and you know already that you're going to win, you know all the moves that you're going to make to win Monopoly.
It's not fun, is it?
Exactly. You will lose some of the spice of life. The art of reading the Akashic Records comes a lot with the wisdom of what to share and how much to share. That's where it's different from a regular psychic reading or regular tarot reading. Now, the difficulty is that a lot of Akashic readers, it's such a high level that you can't really connect with it at a human level. And you might think, oh, this sounds really great, but what am I supposed to do with it? Again, there's different types of Akashic Records readers. I'm very pragmatic because I'm an ex-lawyer. I set my intention, the only information I'm interested in is something that's practical and that can help us in our human experience. Then I have decided to do Akashic Records only for people in business or entrepreneurs or for their career, because your business has a soul, at least I believe it. Even if you're a solopreneur, it has a separate soul from you. And it will give you all the information that you need and incredibly practical explanations, such as what message, who your ideal client, what kind of funnel should you create. All that is in the Akashic Records of your business. That's my specialty. They never really expected this to happen, but I do so much messaging and so much ideal client work in the records for my clients. It's almost unbelievable. And it's also a lot of fun because this process can be also quite circular, and you can go around in circles trying to decide who's my ideal client or what can I talk to them about. This it can be almost like a block after a while.
Because you try to do it and you're going around a circle, and it's kind of like you create a problem. If it's not working,
Yeah.
you'll be stuck in the hamster wheel.
Yeah, exactly. I have people come off the hamster wheel of overthinking their business, and we just get into practicalities, into action, because it's like what we said earlier. If you have an information, you don't act on it, then that of information is wasted.
This is the thing. If people don't tap into that information, they just might think, oh, this is what I think is right. Or I know it's right. But that information might not be right because you might see just percentage of it.
Yeah. And also, I can't say it's 100% accurate what I do, because even the best of psychics can only be as accurate 80% of the time. All the clients, when they receive the information, it feels right. It's almost like this big aha excitement moment where, oh, I knew it all along, but I just couldn't see it until you showed me. To take a point further about the Akashic Records, everybody can access their own record. I want people to know there's a book that I recommend, actually, that's very good, where you can start to look at it and you can start the practices. I think it's Reading the Akashic Records by Linda Howe, Howe. She has both an audio version and a book version. That's where I would start. Obviously, it takes quite a lot of practice, and it also takes some traits of personality. Not everybody can read records, even their own, and it takes practice, and more often than not, it's better to do that with a mentor who can guide you. And I still remember the first sessions when I taught my clients. Some of them were psychics already. I would go along with them. I would share with them what I saw in the records, and they received the information at the same time. That sort of validation can be mind-blowing and really encouraging when you just start. I would say go for a one-to-one mentor rather than a group, because you want that sort of feedback, that sort of validation, hand-holding to start with. What are the qualities that you need to be able to access your records? And also, it's a big ethical violation to try and access someone else's record without their permission. You will bounce out of the records the moment you try to do something like that. There's a group of spirit beings called the Lords of the Records who are there to keep the order. You will.
I think it's so well done within the universe. Lots of people are complaining about GDPR and data protection laws, but I'm like, but you wouldn't want other people to getting your information without you knowing. So this is amazing. I love that we have guardians who are like, nope, nobody gave you permission, off you go.
Call them the GDPR of the Akashic Records. This is
I love that.
Especially for a lawyer. So what are the qualities that you need to have to be able to access your records? You have to have the humility to receive information that you might not be happy to receive. Open-minded and willing to listen. Sometimes you just want to talk, we just want to say what we want, we just want to hear what we want to hear. But this is a bit why I'm saying it's a higher level of kind of reading. You're not going to just get the answer you want to hear just because you keep on asking it. Then you need to have that purity of heart to really want the highest good of everyone involved. It can't just be for your good. The records also need to take into account the interests of that person as well, because they matter as much as I do. They have to have higher perspective and that detachment and almost, I'm not going to say absence of ego. It's impossible for a human being not to have an ego. So there's a lot of practice and a lot of discipline involved. Even as a reader, you have to say what you receive, even though you might not believe it, you might not understand it, and you might even think that it puts you in a really bad light. I was like, I really don't want to say that to that person, but I've got to be true to the information.
So the thing is, you have that responsibility that they came to you with a question and the answer might not be pleasant, but they need to take that on board, because if the question has been asked, they can't just expect to have a wonderful answer. There might be a negative answer, but even the negative answer you give might have a speck of positivity. They might just not see it at the time of delivery.
So this is an interesting point you're making, because I find that when I work in the records, because it's the highest of intention and the highest of purpose, and the energy is very angelic, the angels are able to tell you things that you don't want to hear and still make you feel good about it. They have this
Oh, I love that.
absolute gift. It's incredible. They're able to say no, and yet you will thank them for saying that. This is a sign as well that you're in the records, because it will calm you. Their energy is so calm that suddenly it's almost like your own ego is rocked to sleep, and you can receive the information in a beautiful way.
Amazing. So you touched about angels. So can you talk about work with angels and archangels? Can you talk to me a little bit about that as well?
What I love about angels is how loving they are. There's so much unconditional love. And as I said, when they give you a message, they do it in such a way that it lands really softly, like a feather. And they're always there for us. Most of us, because we don't ask for their help, they have to stand by until we ask. So I want to encourage your audience to ask the angels for anything, ask for help. You don't know who they're going to use to send the help to you. Always at hand. It will come in expected and unexpected ways. When you start working with angels, first of all, you don't have to tell anyone. Keep it close to your heart. Nobody else needs to know. And in a way, when you have a spiritual practice, that's the best way to build the energy, by not spreading out too loud. I want everybody who's in business or who has a career when they're helping other people to lean into the angelic energy, to ask them to come and help. Because sometimes people think, oh, we are angels are not interested in business. They're not interested in my job. That is absolutely not true.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, and this is the thing. I am aware of angels and archangels for a very long time, but it was about 5 years ago when I was listening to this lady and she was doing podcasts, and they were like, angels and archangels are around and you can ask for help, but if you don't ask, they cannot help you. And for
Yeah.
me, it was like a light bulb. And I was
Mm.
like, well, what do you mean? I thought they were helping me all the time. Don't get me wrong, like they would help if they are trying to
Sometimes they
protect
can't.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, but you can't expect them that they're going to read your mind without actually specifically asking, can you help me with XYZ? They're not
Yeah.
allowed to interfere.
Well, it's also because of free will, and that's where there needs to be this balance between free will. So why would an angel protect you if you have free will? Well, perhaps if you're in a dangerous situation and it's not your time to die, so then they would have that permission from your soul through the blueprint that we talked about earlier. But these are more like the extreme situation of danger.
Yeah, and I feel when you open to it, the more you notice these teeny tiny nudges, like you're driving and you're on a crossroad and you always go left. And suddenly you have this urge to go right and you go right. So it's not always that you're getting these prompts to save your life, but it could be various of different things. It's just going back to the intuition again. When you are working with your intuition and you're more open to it and you believe it and trust it, then you are going to get these prompts and little nudges.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to be subtle so that people can exercise that free will. Because if it was strong and you had like an apparition and the angel would say this and that, then it would override your own thinking. So it's quite important, if you want to work with angels, to start paying attention to everything. Not overthinking things, but to pay attention to the numbers on your alarm clock or on your watch, or car plates. I actually have a whole podcast episode on that, actually, if people are interested, on my podcast, on signs from the universe.
I love that you tapped into it, because signs to the universe. My son actually asked me about this the other day. We were talking about angel numbers, and he was very interested. And then he came and he was like, "Mom, the oven's saying 11:11. What does it mean?" And I was just like, "It's not that you are specifically seeking it and you're sitting there since 11 o'clock until it turns 11:11. It's when you glance on it and it is right there." So I think it's really important when people realize it's when you get the little nudges. I sometimes find when people are seeking validation for certain things, they go, "Oh, I need to look for the red car because I have asked for 5 red cars to get this as a sign." And you're like, no, you shouldn't. You should be just living your life. And all of a sudden you see red car and you go like, oh my God, that's 1. And then you just forget it. It's forgetting about it. And then you suddenly see it again and be like, 2nd, that's amazing. Okay. And then you forget it again. It's not that you go and purposely go and Googling red cars. Oh, now I saw 50.
And it's sometimes difficult it's almost like a fine line between one and the other, because you can receive signs, but you can also manifest signs. If you think about it, there's a very famous book, The E Square by Pam Grout, where she shows you that if you start thinking about maybe not red cars, let's say yellow, you'll start seeing them everywhere. And I think what's important is to be relaxed and to trust and to have faith. And I'm going to tell you, it's not always easy. I have found that very challenging sometimes.
100%. We're not perfect. And that's why we're here to learn. Because if we came here and we had nothing to learn, we wouldn't be here, would we?
We're here to play too and have fun. There's a very special experience on Earth that you can't get anywhere else. I'm writing a book at the moment. It's called Healing Burnout with True Spirituality. And I feel that a lot of the burnout experience is because we don't have access to that bigger picture. And a lot of the burnout experience is also because we don't have a purpose. We don't know what we're supposed to do. We don't know where we fit. So if you, even as a mum, know the bigger picture about your child, then it'll be easier to go through the boring sides of motherhood. You can see that it makes all these things a little bit easier. It's the same for every aspect of your life. So this is perhaps the message I'd like to leave with people. Looking into the big picture is always going to be helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And do you think that the Akashic Records would help you that, because you will get that higher picture?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes also, my experience in the Akashic Records is sometimes you don't ask for information, but you can use the records, you open them just to do work, and you get inspiration. It will help you to access that universal mind and all the information that you need. So it's also very helpful for everyday life, especially if you have a project that you need to work on. You will be shown things, or you will be sent people with the right information that you might not even know you needed, because you're connected to all the people who can help you, basically. And it also reduces the time you take to do anything, whatever task you're doing, in probably half the time that you would normally do, because you don't have to think about it. It just comes naturally. You're in the flow. It's a bit like the vortex that Abraham Hicks talks about. It takes you into the vortex, and there everything just flows. Everything is connected. Everything's easier. And also you feel good about yourself. You're uplifted. You leave your baggage at the door. So all this doesn't slow you down anymore.
So, and how do my listeners can get in touch with you if they would be interested in working with you?
I'm going to direct your audience to my other website is spirituallawyer.co.uk. On there you have my 4 published books. Then from there, if they're interested, you'll see how to work with me. And then if you're more in the business area of things, then that will take you to my other websites. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook. I also have a YouTube channel, Spiritual Lawyer. That's my handle.
Thank you very much, Ange, for joining my podcast. And thank you very much to all the listeners for listening, and have a good day. Thank you for tuning into Aligned and Manifesting. I hope today's episode helped you reconnect with your truth, raise your vibration, and remember how powerful you really are. If this episode moved you, inspired you, or helped you see something new, share the magic. Subscribe, leave a review, and pass this episode on to another soul who's ready to rise. That's how we expand the energy. Together, come connect with me on social media or in my Facebook group. Our beautiful community is growing every day with mindset tips, affirmations, and the real behind the scenes of aligned living. Until next time, keep aligning, keep believing, and keep manifesting the life you were born to live.